Hi there, and welcome to the Experience Podcast. My name is Dennis, or people call me Dennis, and today with me here is, in my presence is.
I'm the gift. I am a multi-dimensional spiritual being that's having a human experience. My name is Neil. I'm here receiving the gift of the present, being fully present in the present moment. So here we are. And what do you have, Dennis?
So we're going to talk about the verse in the Bible where it talks, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." And when you hear that, what comes to your mind?
I wasn't expecting that question, which is fantastic because fuck my expectations. And what comes up is the concept of it's hard when we're in our egos and we're trying to control and manipulate our reality based on our ego's desires. We've got a heavy burden at that point, and we're trying. We're also in a state of trying, in a state of doing. When our burden is heavy, we are in a state of doing, and we're actually being a human doing. We're not being a human being. So when our burden is heavy, we're being a human. we're being a human doing. when our burden is heavy. So when we release our egoic tendencies, our need to feed, when we let go of that and we surrender to God, to Source, to infinite intelligence, when we are in a fully surrendered state, then our burden becomes light because we're in a state of surrender and also in a state of allowing, and we're no longer trying. So when our burden is light and easy, it's because we've surrendered our life, we've surrendered our mind, our emotions, our physical body, we've surrendered our soul, our entire being to God. And then we have a light burden because we're no longer caught up in our egoic tendencies, our need to feed. So that's what I hear.
Where does grace come in with that? Like with that, or does grace factor in? Is there a factor of grace in that piece of in that verse?
What do you feel?
I absolutely believe that it does. Yes, and I can totally relate with what you said. For me, and I'm going to take this on a different direction now, if you feel complete with that. But I believe that this verse is actually the fundamental. If the whole world were to actually get what's in this verse, we would be set free on a level that I don't think is very hard to grasp in the human mind. And when I say that, the reason that I say that is when man took the yoke off of God and they put it on the oxen, we started tilling the soil and working up the soil, and now there was a lot of labor involved with that. Whereas if we left it with God and we let nature just do its thing, there is abundance. And abundance of what? Abundance of food. And the reason that I say that is because when we work up the land, we're actually fucking with God's creation, and we're fucking with the microorganisms of Earth. And if you go into the woods or anywhere into nature, you can see that there's very fertile soil and plants just grow, and so I say all that to say that if we plant the correct things, in harmony with each other, we can actually bring microorganisms to the soil that's not fertile, and not only will it produce fertile soil, but the food that we're going to be eating will now nourish us on a level that the Western society has completely destroyed. And the reason that I'm saying that is because most of the world uses all kinds of fertilizers, and they're trying to do it, you know, the way that we've been domesticated to believe. And when we just let nature do its thing and we plant the correct plants, it actually brings fertility to the soil. And you don't have to work up the soil either. It literally takes care of itself. So I can go on a way deeper than that, but that's what comes to my mind.
I do want to go deeper, but I heard some things when you were sharing, and it was the thing with taking the yoke off of God and putting it on the oxen. There's that, but when we have a heavy burden, we also take the yoke off God. We say, God, you no longer get the reins. We put the yoke on ourselves, and we say, I got this. And God says, he slaps you on the ass and says, have fun.
And now we start judging.
Because when our burden is heavy, we put the yoke on ourselves, and we're doing everything from our ego. So we're eating because it tastes good. We're smoking because it feels good. We're doing whatever our ego wants. So maybe our ego wants a relationship with a significant other, because once that relationship has occurred, the ego perceives that it'll receive love, and it perceives that it's not able to feel love before having this relationship. So the ego is infinitely creative in its ability to control and manipulate, and it's so creative that it'll actually generate problems for you to solve that didn't even exist in order to control and manipulate your next steps and actions. And so when our burden is heavy, it's heavy energetically, and when people are around people when other people are around a person that's in their ego, then they feel heaviness being around that person, because the person has constructed an egoic identity that is calling whatever he chooses to call it or she chooses to call it, and says, here I am, I got this, and I'm creating my reality, but I'm not surrendered to God. So then I'd be coming from my ego, and that's when the burden is heavy. But then when we are done with our ego, when we say, all right, this is actually not fulfilling, I'm working harder, I have more success than I've ever had, I have more relationships than I've ever had, I've got more friends than I've ever had, I'm partying more than I ever have, and with all the things that I have, I still feel a void inside, I still feel empty. And that is the burden. The burden comes from having it all, according to the ego, and still feeling a void. Well, that void is God. And when we take the yoke from our shoulders, put it back on God, and say, you're running the show now, I'm here to listen, I'm here surrendered, just allow me to think as God, allow me to speak as God, allow me to feel as God, allow me to behave and act, and allow my fruits to be God's fruits of the Spirit, of peace and love and joy and infinite abundance. Then we have a light burden, because now God is the deciding factor of what manifests in our life, and not our egoic desire.
And a lot of what the ego comes from is from not having the microorganisms in the soil, and because food is information. So if we have the fundamental of life is great food, nutrient dense food. So when we have nutrient dense food and we consume fruits and fresh fruits and vegetables that are very nutrient dense. Now we're getting information that is closer to God than, for fast food or bagged food, canned foods, all that shit. So now there's just this cycle of more abundance and more abundance and more abundance when nature can do its thing. And if we go back to nature and we don't have these massive fields where we have tractors and combines and all this shit that they're constantly trying to consume. Need more fertilizer, need more Roundup, need more genetically modified seeds. All that shit is from the ego, because the ego feels that it never is enough. And when we just fucking stop and look at nature, that is all we have to do. And we look around and there's abundance everywhere. So the fundamentals of abundance and connection to God is allowing God to do his thing through nature, and just accepting his grace, and there will be more than enough. So
the soil is it's Earth's skin. So when we're tilling up the soil and you look across a field that's freshly tilled and you just see all these till marks, begin to imagine that those are dog scratch marks on the back of a person on their skin. And imagine how that person would feel having their skin just ripped and shredded by a dog's claw marks and having their back look like a plowed field. That's what we're doing to Mother Earth. That's how Mother Earth feels. And Mother Earth is not something that's separate from us. If humans no longer exist, creation, Mother Earth no longer exists. Because God created all of creation for us, and then he created us for him. So creation is here for us, and all we've got to do is receive the abundance of it. But instead of receiving it, we've been trying to take it and control it and manipulate it. And we've been listening to our ego and allowing our egoic desires to determine the decisions and the behaviors and the actions that we take. And when we start listening to God and start listening to the truth, which there is only one, the truth, then what occurs is that infinite abundance begins to be reflected. And there's more than enough food, and there's more than enough water, there's more than enough energy. And everybody's on purpose, because your difference is what makes a difference. And when we're in our ego, we're trying to create our difference. But when we're listening to God, our difference is revealed within us, and we just be our purpose. We don't even need to do anything. Our purpose starts to be expressed as a reflection of our being.
Of being whole and complete. That's all I got, except for this cacao.
I'm really glad for what got shared today. We dove somewhat deeper into this than I expected. If you're new to this channel, be sure and subscribe. If you're already subscribed, thank you and honor you for your ongoing subscription. Thank you for joining us, and remember to stay infinitely blessed.